Welcome to the Restless Creatives podcast. Comfortable chats with inspirational creatives. Hosted by three self-confessed restless creatives, Lucy Hunter, Fiona Pickles and Bridget Girling. This week, you join just the three of us, focusing on our very own Fiona Pickles, an amazing floral artist. We discuss her childhood and her career path that led her to where she is now. So, Mrs. Pickles.
Yes,
of
Girling.
Fiona Pickles.
Florals. It's only Fiona Pickles Florals. Fiona Pickles Florals on Instagram because there's quite a few Fiona Pickles, as it turns out.
Really?
There's Fiona
Really?
Pickles, but they're all animals.
No
Oh.
way.
What sort of animals?
Exactly.
Dogs.
What kind of animals?
Rabbits. Dogs. Can you not hear me?
No,
Was that a no, I can't hear you?
I couldn't then. I can. now.
Okay.
Sorry, I've ruined it. I've completely ruined it. We're going to have to
Don't-
start again. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry, I'll edit it.
We've got a
Or
master
not.
editor.
Or not.
No, so you've got dogs and
So
rabbits.
there's a lot of Fiona.Pickles, Fiona Pickles _ all sorts. That are just animals. People obviously call their animals Fiona Pickles.
Maybe it's because it sounds a little bit like
Beatrix
Beatrice
Potter.
Potter.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
have commented on that before, and I'm like, oh no, but I can't do
No,
anything about my
it's
name.
nice.
No, you can't. I think your name's lovely,
Yeah.
which is why I was so surprised that you said there's so many of them, because I was thinking, I think it's really unusual. I'm not sure I know anybody
Yeah.
else called Pickles apart from you.
No, it's just
Oh,
a
and
Yorkshire
Brian.
name. Yeah, and Brian. Yes, you do know Brian. No, it's because Brian's actually a Londoner, a Southerner.
He's
Um,
not.
He is.
No.
He's a proper.
Is he?
Cockney
Proper
as well.
Cockney.
Yeah, well, he wasn't actually born within the sound of Bow Bells, but he was born in Hackney. But his grandparents, I think it was his grandparents, are from Yorkshire, and Pickles is a very Yorkshire name. There's a lot of pickles around.
Mhm. Well, what I would like to know is who is it behind Fiona Pickles? Where does Fiona Pickles? Where does Fiona Pickles' creativity come from? Tell us about your printing, your days of printing, your
So-
when you left school.
How far back shall I go?
Oh my
far
God! How long
as
have we
you
got?
So, at school, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. Just did not know. You know, I was the classic, don't know what I wanted to do. I think at one point I said I wanted to be a hairdresser. And
It's creative.
Mm-hmm.
it is creative. I have to say, I think my mum had higher expectations. And it was obviously while my dad was still alive, because I can remember very clearly she saying, you can't be a hairdresser, and Dad was just saying, if she wants to be a hairdresser, let her be a hairdresser. It doesn't matter what she is. Yeah, so Mum was obviously thinking, she definitely wasn't thinking doctor. It wasn't doctor material. But no, it's funny, and I remember that really vividly. You know, Dad was really keen to let me just do what I wanted to do.
So how old
So-
would you have been then?
Well, Dad died when I was just 17. So, oh my goodness, I've got two. So that must have been 16, 17, I would imagine. But still didn't know what I wanted to do, because it was sort of like grammar school funneling. You know, I was doing biology, chemistry, physics. Wasn't particularly good at any. I enjoyed biology, I have to say, and I chose to do environmental science as well, because it was kind of biological. But I did all the O levels, and then sort of went to so left school after fifth form, as it was then. I'm not sure what it is now, but intended to come back and do my A levels. And my friend at the time, she was leaving and going to Stockport College to do. I can't remember what she was going to do actually. She might have just been going to do her A levels at Stockport College. So throughout the summer holidays, I was a bit like, don't know what I want to do, and decided to leave. So I left school thinking I was coming back, and didn't. I just went to Stockport College, did my A levels there. But then the first year I was there was when Dad died, and that's when things went a bit pear-shaped. I mean, going to college anyway, after attending a girls' school, you know, it wasn't that much studying done.
Your attention was perhaps taken elsewhere.
Life.
Slightly diverse.
This could be interesting.
I was never a baddie. You know, I was never a baddie at all. Couldn't be a baddie person. But yeah, you know, I was a typical teenager, slightly going off the rails. But then, of course, Dad died, and it did go a bit pear-shaped. So flunked my A levels, and was at this stage where it was like, now what do I do? And randomly, I think while I was at college, the careers teacher, what do you call them? Careers officer, whatever they're called, said, normally when people have got a science background, I didn't really have a science background, but that's what they seem to think I had, we recommend printing.
Really?
Of course, what else would you do? So randomly, that's kind of why I ended up going down the printing route.
Really? So it was just that one comment that really changed the course of
my life.
Quite a long time, really.
It's amazing how influential teachers can be, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, if they'd have said, we normally say rocket science, I'm not totally sure I've been a rocket scientist.
You might have given it a go.
I'm not sure I would. And when I was at college, actually, I can remember going to Stepping Hill Hospital and spent a day in the path lab, you know, with all the petri dishes where they spread horrible bits of
viruses.
Petri dishes, yeah.
Bits of
that was only a day. But I was quite interested in that side of things at one point, but it didn't happen for very long. So because I'd kind of not gone off the rails, because that makes it sound a lot worse than it was, but your head was just all over the place. Your life had just imploded. Mum kind of not took control, but I think she also knew me as a person, obviously, didn't she? Whereas I probably would have just drifted and I can't bother to do what. So she spoke to the printing department at Manchester Poly, as it was then. And they, I think, were looking. I mean, they wanted girls because it was very male dominated, and I think they probably wanted to recruit people for the course, so they were quite keen to have me. And between them and Mum, I just ended up going to Manchester Poly studying printing. It was very random.
So
what did you actually
printing mean? Yes.
So it was a 3-year diploma in printing. So I'm a DIP. Technically speaking, I am a DIP DIP. It's basically studying everything to do with printing, even though then it was still very mechanised. We were doing the very basic, so typesetting. We did manual typesetting, putting type into forms and spacing it, and doing the really traditional craft, if you like. Bookbinding is a proper craft. I used to love bookbinding.
Yeah.
That's why you're so good at spacing things on a piece of paper.
Yeah. You were trained to do it.
Yeah, well, it is kind of my background, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you sort of, I mean, you do move on, you forget stuff, obviously, and you don't see stuff. But I do love paper and fonts and that sort of thing. So yeah, photography. We did proper darkroom. What do you call it?
Developing.
Yes.
Sounds fascinating. God, I wish I'd done that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
When was
this?
Really
interesting.
Was it the 80s then?
Yeah, it was. So here we go. Here's showing my age. It was 1982. I went.
Blimey, I was still in primary school.
Yeah.
She couldn't resist it, could she?
So no, it was interesting, and I think there was 3 girls on the course. So the rest were
fascinating.
guys. But what was so fun, we did letterpress printing, so we had a day of printing. We either did litho printing or letterpress printing, and without fail, I used to come out of letterpress printing covered in ink. All the boys were just like clean, and I just had ink everywhere. I don't know how I managed it, but I was.
Because you were enjoying it and immersing yourself in it.
Diving in. So mixing the ink and putting the ink on the forms and doing the actual letterpress printing. It's really interesting. So 3 years of that. it was based in the art department as well at Manchester Poly, so it was quite a nice environment to be in. You know, it was a creative environment. But very antiquated. You know, the printing industry was a completely different level to what we were doing. It was just you had to sort of get in and learn the craft to understand. You know, we were having to estimate in a really, really old-fashioned way, and it just didn't bear any resemblance to what was actually sort of happening in reality. But anyway, so after 3 years of that, it was like, well, where am I going to work? And I just wanted to go to London. It was just something I wanted to do. And I mean, Mum always said, so even up to more or less the day that she died, she said, I was always so proud of you. So when I got, oh God, don't get me going. I said that, shall I? Oh God.
Yes, but it means a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
She said, when I qualified, I just took myself, sorry about the dogs having a bit of a moment in there. I took myself down to London and just found myself somewhere to live. So I didn't go with them. I just literally went down
on your own,
on my own,
with your bag packed.
No, it was a preemptive strike.
You have your handkerchief on a stick.
It wasn't Dick Whittington. No, it wasn't that. It was. I just went down. I think it was during the summer holiday. Actually, after I'd left, I just said, "I'm going to live in London." Found somewhere in Willesden Green.
Had you been to London much before?
No.
So this really was a big adventure.
Well, it didn't feel like it at the time. It just.
It's the bliss of youth, isn't it?
It was. I think it was just the obliviousness. I don't know if I'd ever been to London.
Did you have any friends in London, or did you know anyone?
A couple of people from the course were in London, so I think that was probably helped.
Right.
And I think, did I go? I don't think I even went down with a friend. Actually, I think I literally just went on my own. Anyway, found somewhere to live, and it was a sort of bedsit at the top of a house in Willesden Green. Nice old house, but tiny bedsit. And got a job down in London, which was where I met Brian. He actually interviewed me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Oh my goodness. So did he do this very sensibly? Was it all above board, this interview?
Oh no, it wasn't. We didn't even start seeing it until... She asked me. Good Lord.
I'm just thinking of a film. I could see the film now.
No, so for the
You've been locked down too long.
Definitely been watching too much telly. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so we worked together. I actually worked in the office with Brian for 6-8 months maybe, and it was only after I moved to a different site actually. So it was a really big company of about 500 people, probably more actually, because it's 4 big factories, so probably quite a lot more.
They still exist, these big factories?
No. Every single printing company that I've worked for, this sounds really bad, every single printing company that I've worked for doesn't exist anymore. But that's the nature of the printing industry.
Yeah.
That isn't me.
Yeah, no.
I don't think I'm the common denominator. It's left a trail of destruction behind me.
The Pickles curse.
So it was only when I moved away to one of the factories that Brian and I started seeing each other. It wasn't.
So what were you doing in the factories? What was your actual role?
So when I was at the factory, which it was in Hayes in North London, is it? Action sort of direction.
It's Middlesex, isn't it?
Yeah. I was a production controller, so I used to have to answer the phone. Production, of course, I'm a northerner, and I say production. I don't say production. So I used to get the mickey taken out of my all the time. Every time somebody rang, it was like taking the mickey out of my accent, because I was down in London with a northern accent.
But did you love it? Did you enjoy it, your time?
I did. I've always enjoyed my work, actually. I've never not enjoyed my work.
That's good.
It was, So what we were doing was actually controlling all the jobs through the factory.
And what kind of jobs were they? Were they for magazines or newspapers or a small job, small printing, people off the street? Oh, huge.
No, massive. It was a really big, so it was a financial printers, and
Right.
this is in the 80s, which were doing like really big takeovers, all the Guinness takeovers,
Oh wow.
all the big report and accounts. It was a really high quality printing company. But so one of the things before I moved to Hayes, the factory, I was working. So the head office was on Commercial Street. It's where Urban Outfitters is now. It's a really beautiful sort of Art Deco building on Commercial Street, and that's where we work together. And one of the things I had to do there, excuse me, I've got a really froggy throat. They printed overnight budget books. You know, when the budget is announced, they obviously have to do this budget book for accountants. And I'm just moving that so because my hands are very distracting doing that. And they have to distribute it around the country, and they do this on a plane, like a little Cessna plane, little boxes of report and accounts going everywhere, and somebody had to take them.
It's a different world.
I was the person to take these report and accounts around.
You see, this is
on the plane.
Film. This is a film.
Yeah, yeah. So we could make
Fiona Pickles,
Brian
the movie.
Brian would have to be the pilot.
He would.
Brian wasn't
the interviewer.
pilot.
He's the
No,
pilot.
but in the movie that we're writing a screenplay for you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I know. Yeah.
So you're on your Cessna.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Back to the story. Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Drifting on.
actually, this is very interesting. But anyway,
It is.
So
It is interesting.
I've never flown
Different
around in a
world.
small plane delivering
budget books.
budget books.
So I think I had to go. Sorry. I think we went to about 4 airports, and me and I mean, I was only, what would it be, 19? No. How old are you when you're about 21, aren't you?
But when you
leave
leave
college.
Yeah.
College, yeah. So I was 21, 22, and not wise to the world of business at all. And I can remember sitting on this Cessna thinking, oh, now what do I do? When I meet these people, I didn't know who I was meeting to hand over these budget books. I was just really worried about, do I shake these people's hand? Are they going to think I'm an idiot shaking their hand? And my theory was it'd be better to shake the hand of a courier than not shake the hand of somebody important.
Yes.
I think that's a good theory.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of ethos that I worked on. Anyway, so I did. I sort of met them, handed over these boxes, and tried to be professional.
Did anybody look at you strangely as you put your hand out?
I can't remember.
Any of those awkward moments?
Yes.
They ignored your hands completely.
Left me hanging.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. They might have done, but it's quite a long time ago. But so one of the airports was, I think it might have been Scotland actually. So I think it might have been Glasgow or Edinburgh. I can't remember. But we had to come back down the Northumberland coast, and he flew the plane as low as he could go. And watching the Northumberland coast on this plane was just magical, just amazing. And so it was really early morning as well when we left, so even by the time we were coming back it was still not that late, but it was beautiful, really interesting, to be honest. So yeah, I did that for
So why did you leave that?
well, I was only down in London for 2 years, and then once Brian and I started seeing each other, we decided we wanted to get married quite quickly, and decided we didn't want to stay in London once we were married. So we moved. There was one other place, one other sort of like high-end printers along similar lines within the country that wasn't in London, that was in Bradford. So we went for an interview. We went together, actually, for an interview. Get one, you get them both.
Yeah.
And they offered us both. I mean, at that stage, it was sort of Brian that was, I mean, I was quite lowly in my job, but Brian was quite well known. So they employed Brian and took me along at the same time. And so we worked in Lund Humphreys is the name of the company. So that was a really top end colour printers. So it was litho. It wasn't web. You know how you see them on the big toilet roll.
Oh yeah.
Big sort of reel. It wasn't that. So it was litho sheets, but it's a big A1 proper big. I think they had 5 big presses and a full bindery. It was a full typesetting all the way through to bindery and delivery. And so it was very much important accounts. And I used to work for the London office, so I represented the London office. There was 4 guys, I think. Was it 4? 3 guys in the London office. I was their internal sort of sales contact.
Right.
So I was dealing with all the London agencies, the big creative London design agencies.
Oh wow! But that was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it was all it really was fascinating. But I think that's kind of where I got my understanding of colour from, because those people were so precise about what corrections they wanted making. So we used to proof a job on a big chromalin.
And a what?
And chromalin. So it's like a sort of plastic version of the printed sheet. So that chromalin is then sent to the client to show them what it's going to look like. And they're making tiny, tiny colour corrections, so they're sort of circling errors, and then bring this bit up in red and bring this bit down in yellow. And yeah, so it was really, and I spent years doing that and sort of understanding colour corrections. And I really think that's where my fine colour nuance.
Gosh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I just think that would fry my brain.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do I need to put the light on? Do I look like I'm disappearing down?
You are sort of disappearing.
I'll be back.
I quite like the grey.
Yes, she was glowing, but shortly she might not be.
Yes.
Is that any better? Is that a
Yeah,
bit?
yeah, it is better.
Sorry, it's not brilliant light.
Well, we're still at that point, are we, where the light goes and it just goes
really
you
fast.
look like you're still in daylight, Bridge. Like
oh, well, I've got a light here.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
You've got a better light than I have.
Have you turned them off?
Me?
The lights? Have you? Oh, you're on a dimmer.
It's a very unglamorous light near me.
You need a ring of fire at the front of you.
What?
A ring of fire.
Well, look, you can really see that portrait of the dog now. That's beautiful.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Is it one of yours, or is it
It
just
isn't. No, it's from. I think it's Kettle of Fish Designs. Actually, I got it from. No, it's just a. It's actually like a material.
Oh, right.
Gorgeous, isn't it?
So I've just staple gunned it into a frame.
That's a good idea.
Nobody will know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, until you tell them. But there's a kind of installation coming out of a frame there as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Looks like it's coming out your head actually.
Oh, thanks. The dogs are causing all sorts of riots upstairs. I can hear them running around.
Is it nearly tea time?
No, they just had tea time. That's why they're going on.
Oh.
Sorry, I just dropped my cushion. Right, I'm back with you.
She's back in the room.
So that was your colour. That's what.
Yes. Oh yeah. So I really, really think that's kind of where my big sort of understanding of colour has come from. And it was
go on.
Really, really stressy. It was super, super stressy times because it was report and accounts. So it's a legal date that you have to get a report and accounts out, and inevitably, you were up to the wire on every single job, and there were times when it was so close to not happening, it was not good. But I mean, so I was the internal contact, and so I always had I was on call basically 24 hours a day.
Oh gosh!
Because I created job bags for the factory to instruct them, how to create the job, and if there was ever any problems, they ring, because it was 24-hour printing. They used to ring me. It happened quite regularly. I wouldn't say it was every night or anything, because it wasn't, but there was a lot of phone calls during the middle of the night.
You just wouldn't think that in printing anybody would need to call you in the night, but of course they've got to run back then they had to run these things 24 hours a day.
It'll be the same now. I mean, when I left.
Is it? I'm so ignorant of this world.
Well, why would you know about it though? It's one of those things that...
It's just an area you just don't know about, isn't it? But yeah. So, and that's actually kind of where I So we got married when I was 24, and we got a house quite quickly afterwards, and that was my first garden, and that's where my love of the garden came. So I sort of left this sort of stressy job behind and just poured myself into the garden.
That was your switch off. That was where you escaped.
Yeah. It's just my refuge, and I was just out there all the time. So it was only a tiny garden. It was, when we moved in, it was just fenced off from a field. And I started it from scratch, and so everything in there was what I'd done. So when we left the house, it was a bit like you've sort of loved and lost, It's like, oh God. Yeah. And there's still lots of plants there, sort of like family plants, but I've got lots of other things here. So, but it was, I still miss that garden because it was so of me. But
what drew you to the garden? I mean, was gardening in your parents' history at all, or?
So, Mum was an avid gardener. She loved a garden. Dad, I can't really remember, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think he did. I think it was always Mum. But even as kids, Mark, my brother, and I were given a bed at home, and it wasn't so much a do what you like with it. It was a do you want to weed that?
Right.
But then, even now I associate candy tuft with that bed because I was given a seed of candy tuft, and that was my thing to plant in the bed. So I wouldn't say that gave me a love of gardening, that experience, but I think just being around Mum and she
being outside
and being outside, and I mean, in those days, I think we were talking about it some other time, but we were just out, weren't we, all the time, and just doing things. We used to go make dens outside in the woods, and that's actually where I discovered I had a grass allergy, because we were romping through the long grass as kids, and I came back absolutely covered in rashes and sneezing and everything. So, but it was just outside all the time.
There was nothing to do inside, was there? Apart from watch the test card. What was that girl in the?
Yes.
Do you remember that girl?
She used to sit there next to a blackboard, didn't she?
Yes. Did she have an egg? I did.
Clown.
It was the clown. That's right. It was. I used to sit there waiting.
I did for Blue Pizza to come on.
Magic Roundabout. I remember sitting there waiting for the Magic Roundabout.
Yeah.
What was that green thing? What was it called?
Rhubarb on
Camberwell Green.
Camberwick Green.
Camberwick Green. I used to love that.
Yeah. White Horses. You remember White Horses in the summer holidays?
No.
One of my favourite programmes. So in the summer holidays. Yeah. No, don't know.
But talking of horses, you were a bit of a horse rider, weren't you?
I was obsessed by horses. I actually can't believe I didn't get bullied at school because I used to.
Oh no, this sounds like a true confession coming.
So I used to, bear in mind, this is a grammar school with, between 11 and whatever age you are when you leave grammar school. I used to run around the playground with my hands behind my back pretending I was a horse.
As one does. I still do that now, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember there being mention of roller skates.
Yeah.
I used to roller skate. I used to ice skate. Used to do gymnastics.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I used to do gymnastics. I loved gymnastics. I was really good at gymnastics because I was hypermobile. So that was the only thing I enjoyed at PE. That was the ironic thing. So when I went to Stockport College, in my rash moment of changing things, I actually went to study PE.
Oh really? I did that at college first year.
It lasted about 5 days. And then I changed. It's like,
what put you off?
Really cut me for this. Because I used to hate PE at school.
So why did you go?
I mean, this isn't actually making any sense. What do I hate at school? So what should I go to do at college?
I think I thought I could do things like gymnastics and trampolining and things like that, but then you forget the summer where it's all javelins and hurling and running.
Disgusting.
So yeah, literally about 3 or 5 days that lasted doing that, and just changed course straight away. Random. Anyway, so yeah.
So you would spend all your time, your solace would be in the garden.
Yeah.
At what point do you think, okay, I need to give printing the big heave ho and do something that's more creative in the garden?
So I changed jobs. I changed jobs about probably 3 times in total, up to doing different things at different times. It was always big printing companies, you know, and I was always on that production side, so you were always on call and what have you. But I loved it. You know, it was creative. It was pressure. It was
young. You were young. It was
yeah, and it was, you know, it was dynamic and it was really, really interesting. And you felt important, not in a vain sort of way, but you just felt like, you know, you had
purpose.
You were the one that understood that job, and people had to ask you, and you know, it was up to you to make that job work. And you know, it was really interesting times. But it got to the stage where, so the last company I worked at was, they were very much more direct mail. So you know, if you've got like your Sky statement or I'm trying to think of other statements, but Sky was one of our big customers. But you know, even like banks and things. So it was all the it was very, very computerized. And I sat in a meeting one day, I can remember this really vividly, sat around a boardroom meeting, because I was sort of like director level, I mean, low director, not board directors, but you know, I became creative client services director, I think it was, by the time I left, sitting around this meeting and this table for this meeting, and they were talking about dongles, and I was like, I don't want my life to be talking about dongles. What is a dongle? You know, it was just.
What is a dongle?
A dongle, I think, and don't quote me on this. Is it like you?
It's a roaming internet.
USB, yeah,
you put it into something, don't you?
Yeah, it's one of those type things. You see, I really didn't.
Didn't embrace that
your
bit.
By this stage, I'd kind of switched off, and I was like, maybe I should be doing something else. Because I mean, I still love my job, and it was, you know, I had a really nice team working with me, and
well, quite often it is the people that keep you there when you really are ready to move on, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually, I think, and it was probably classic, because I was 40 at the time. It was that probably, if I don't do something now, I'm not going to do it, and I'd rather try it, make a mess, and go back to what I was doing than have that regret of not doing it at all and thinking, if only. So when I was kind of thinking along those lines, and it was years, you know, it wasn't a Stockport College type thing overnight. It was something I thought about for a long time. I was like, what shall I do? Shall I do? It was either garden design or floristry, and because I had that sort of love of the garden, I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to lose that because that was my job, and you sort of had to do it as a job. So, and that was very random. I mean, obviously you do it, Lucy, and you've managed to still have the love of the garden, but make a living out of it.
Not every day.
So yeah, well, nothing every day is absolutely perfect, is it? I mean, let's face it. Oh, sorry. So in the end, I decided that floristry might be better, and kind of went down that route. And it was very.
Did you get training?
No, I went.
No. No.
I did a month-long course. No, I volunteered at a florist shop, for a beautiful florist shop in Hebden Bridge. I always mention her because it's a beautiful shop. If you're ever in Hebden Bridge, you need to go there, the Willow Garden. And I volunteered to help her with weddings, because I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe I'll go into that. So I worked with her, not permanently, but so I was doing this really sort of stressy job at the same time, but still volunteering at the weekends to help her with weddings. So we used to go out on weddings and things like that. So I did that over 2 years, and then decided that I was going to chuck in the job and go and live in London for a month and do the Jane Packer career course.
That's quite interesting, because her style is nothing like the style you have.
No, but that's what was available.
There wasn't anything else around. Then I think there was Paula Pryke and maybe Judith Blacklock. I think she was there. But I think other than that, I can't think there was anybody else at the time. And you know, so I rented a property just down the road. Well, I was literally almost next door to Selfridges. So lived next door to Selfridges in London for a month, and it was just like, it's such a life experience. It was fabulous. So I could walk to the school every morning, and it was a fabulous way of doing it. But it gave you a good grounding in the basics of wiring and the business side of it. But yeah, style is very different. But that was a style then, it was sort of 2005 when I did that. And so I didn't want to do, I obviously did want to do wedding at some point because I'd trained with Helen for 2 years beforehand. But I went in thinking that my business was going to be like corporate contracts and that sort of thing because I was from the corporate world. It's like,
Expedistra.
That's my, yes, Expedistra leaves. That's my comfort zone, and I want to work with businesses because that's, I'm used to the business world. And it just gradually changed to where I am now.
And how did that happen though? Because to go from Jane Packer to where you are now, I would say is quite a long way.
Yes, it's quite a journey. It was, so I didn't have a shop, I was completely unknown, and I had to network.
Yeah, because there was no social media, was there?
This was before the days of social media, so the only way I could get out and meet anybody was networking.
So you mean like sort of breakfast clubs and women's groups, business groups, and oh my goodness, thank goodness for social media.
Absolutely. And that's why I say to people so much, it's like, please just embrace social media, because do you know how hellish it was without it? And yes, it's difficult to keep on top of it, but do you know what we had to do beforehand? And
you didn't have websites.
No.
Were there?
Well, I think in the very early days I did have a website, but it was so basic.
Well, it was probably one that took all day to load up on the screen, wasn't it?
Exactly, dial-up. Yeah.
Well, it was dial-up internet then. It wasn't. You didn't have anything. That noise just so vividly reminds me of early days of the business.
Yeah.
So.
Wedding fairs, I suppose you did a lot of.
Well, I wasn't doing wedding at that time, so I was looking for corporate clients. So I actually started networking via. There was a couple of ladies groups. I'm just turning my phone off, just making sure it wasn't going to ring. There was a couple of ladies sort of lunch networks that I met a few people. In fact, there's one person who I'm still in touch with now, and I met her in a completely different life. So. She's who I went to stay with after I stayed at yours, Bridge.
Oh, yes.
It's in Hingham. It's Louise at
with the antiques.
Architectural. Yeah. So we've kind of sort of like re-met up. We didn't keep in touch, but we re-met up through our different lives now. But yeah, so she had a jewellery business to start with. So I met her on one of these networking things. And I eventually got a contract at a spa in Leeds. So doing corporate vases. Leeds is 45 minutes drive from here, but it was quite a big contract to start with. They wanted a lot of vases, so it was worth doing. It was worth driving in for. So, and then you start meeting people because it's a spa. You put your details out, and people find you and just sort of do a couple of weddings, and then it just escalates. And then fast forward a few years, ended up completely wedding-tastic. It was just full-on wedding floristry, doing wedding fairs, doing the big wedding fairs like with Harrogate, which is now the Nightingale Hospital, the event centre in Harrogate, and the GMEX in Manchester. The big like 3-day wedding fairs that you have all sort of shell schemes and so. But my style was always, even though it was wedding-y, it was always natural. It was always sort of foliagey. It was herby. It was
inspired by your garden.
Yeah, it was much more commercial, but it was still loose and herby and garden-esque. It was. So there was one year when there was only 2 of the florists at one of the big wedding fairs, and he's like sort of like full-on contemporary, massive, really sort of blingy type floristry. And then there was me, and those were the only two florists at the wedding fair, and it was like perfect, because if you loved his stuff, you hated mine, and vice versa, and it was good. But
So you became really busy with weddings, like full on.
Yeah, really busy.
And that became too much?
Yeah. So 2014 was the year from hell. Well, it was. I'd probably taken on too much work, and my mum died in the April, just before all the weddings were about to kick off. So hard. It was a very, very hard year. You know, it was head down, just try and get through it. And it was after that I thought, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And I did have the thought, do I want to stop completely? You know, what else do I want to do? And I just thought, right, okay, well, if it's stopping completely, I either do completely what I want to do, carry on, but do what I want to do, or stop completely. And I didn't want to stop. So it was.
And by that stage, I guess the social media was coming in, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I think I'd had two websites by then. A very basic one at the beginning, and then I can't remember when it would be. So there was probably the one that you might have seen. I can't remember where we had seen it. But anyway, so there was one that was very sort of full-on wedding-y, and then I was in the stage of 2014. I was about to rebrand, because I did rebrand in 2015, but I think it was after 2014 had got out of the way. But so in just skipping back a little bit, at the end of, I think it was 2011, I'd started going down the route of looking into using British flowers, and I think at the beginning of 2012, I think it was, it might have been 2011. I'm getting a bit confused about dates, but I went on a flower growing course, so with Georgie Newbury, just learning how to grow flowers commercially. It was never going to be to sell. It was always going to be for me as the client. It was still with a view to doing weddings at that stage, but it was very much on my agenda. And I also started attending the very, very, very early meetings of Flowers on the Farm, when there was very few people in there. So we had a meeting over in Lancashire with probably about 10, 12 people in there from a very wide area, because there were so few people there. And that meeting those people, then it's like, oh my goodness, this is just the direction I want to be going in. It was just
suddenly made sense.
Yeah, it all sort of, absolutely. It was like, okay, because so again, flicking back to probably 3 or 4 years after I'd started the business, maybe not even that long actually, I was asked to do a photo shoot. So it was for women in rural enterprise. I don't know if either of you have ever been a member of that. No. It's called Wire, but it was focusing on women in rural enterprise, and we did a photo shoot. So they suggested that we all did a photo shoot with 2 pieces that represented our business. And in fact, it was just after I moved into this house, so that about 11 years ago. Let you work out the rest. Brain's kind of switched off. And so I decided to do a bouquet and a buttonhole, and I made it completely of flowers from the garden. And even now, I'll try and find the pictures actually, because it's a really pretty bouquet and it was a really pretty buttonhole. The buttonhole was put on top of a upturned terracotta pot. The photographer did that when he was taking a picture of it. But at that stage, you know, when you have that thought and you think, people are just going to think, oh, bless her, she can't afford to buy flowers, she's had to use them from the garden.
It's funny mindset, isn't it?
It's just,
I can't imagine.
So it was obviously sort of there in me, but I didn't have the confidence to think, I'm going to go down this route. You know, I didn't even have the wherewithal or the knowledge or anything to go down that route. It wasn't that I didn't have the confidence. That makes it sound like I thought about it, and I didn't. But it was obviously just sort of there. And it would be quite interesting to look at that bouquet now and see how that looks compared to what I'm doing now, but that was very early on.
Mm.
But it was definitely that sort of almost peer pressure of thinking, the other florists are going to think I'm just a bit.
Should I
Well,
conform
it didn't feel legitimate, did it?
No, it didn't. It didn't. It just really didn't. So yeah, and that's when I went full on down the route. But then initially I started growing herbs to go with the wedding bouquets and things. So
Right.
grow a bit of lavender, grow a bit of stock, and then it just carried on going down that route. But yeah, so 2015 was when I just thought I'd rather be in the garden than, because my workshop is a garage, basically. It's a converted garage, and I spent almost a whole year in that garage in 2014. I literally didn't see anything, and it was like, I don't want to live in a garage.
Yeah.
Not many of us do, really. Do
No.
I would not do that. And a lot of it was late at night, so I kind of broke myself trying to do too much myself, and it was like, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Anybody don't do that. Employ people. I think there was just I don't know what it was really. It was just I'll get through it and I'll do it myself. So I was almost not sleeping before.
But sometimes you can just be so busy, you haven't got time to think of a solution. You've just got to get through it. Yeah. For somebody to say, well, look, you need to sort this out, you're thinking, well, I haven't got time to sort it out.
Exactly.
Just have to do it.
Yes. It's so true.
No, and I think it's just that sort of almost like my business isn't big enough to warrant having people working with me. Not that I never wanted to employ people from day one, because I was in a managerial position where I know the problems that you can have with employing people. Just it can be all encompassing, and I just didn't want that. It wasn't how I saw the business, so I never ever wanted to employ people. And at 2014 I could have made that decision to go full on down employing people, just carry on, because I was getting lots of work and nice work, but I didn't want to do it at all. So step back, and that's when I really sort of dug into what I wanted, and didn't even know what I wanted to do then. So I had a really quiet year. It was like, what do I do? Who's even going to want me? And I had a few weddings that were sort of carrying on from what had been booked, and then it just gradually got more and more weird.
It's quite liberating though, isn't it, to just go, I know I want to carry on with this. I don't know the direction, but I'll find that direction, or it will find me. The path will reveal itself. Yeah. And maybe it's still revealing itself.
I think it is. And I feel really open to anything that happens, and I don't have that fixed. Someone got a squeaky wheel somewhere. Is it a bird?
I think it's a bird.
It's the dog.
Oh, your dog chewing on the thing again.
Oh, it's Father Christmas again.
Because there were birds singing. I'm assuming that's it with you, Fiona.
It might be.
Birds have gone to bed.
Well, there is blackbirds flying up now into the rose bush that's over here.
That's not a wheezy bird, is it?
Father Christmas getting it.
It sounds like a wheelbarrow. A squeaky wheelbarrow. You sure he's not just driving around the lounge with a wheelbarrow?
No.
While we're having this little pause, we need to ask Fiona her 5 questions.
Oh!
Is it that time already?
Yes.
I've got some for you, especially for you.
Oh my goodness.
First one, especially for you.
Especially for you.
And you have to choose gardening or arranging.
Oh my God.
Bridge,
it's like choosing your children.
I know. Gosh, Bridge.
It's evil, isn't it?
It is a bit.
Well, I think probably because I've gone through that decision, I think because it was like, I don't care what happens, I want to be in my garden, I would say probably gardening. But to never be able to arrange would not
I think that's really harsh, Bridge.
That was harsh. It was harsh, but it was a good one, wasn't it? It's a good one.
Well,
it's a very good one.
Don't ask me that.
What's the next one?
The next one is, can you dance?
Can I dance? Well, now this is a really interesting one, because So if you...
I thought these were supposed to be quick fire questions, a yes or a no.
No, I know. Well, sorry. But
I quite like where it's going.
It's a yes and a no, because and this is a real confession.
Just
now.
contrary.
So I used to be one of those people, and I'm sorry, Brian, if you listen to this. He will hate it. He just hates all this side of it. I used to be one of those people that used to be in the Bowie room at a discotheque, as it was in those days, doing all the actions to Bowie songs. So
really,
yeah, I was full on.
Just Bowie.
Well, yeah, the Bowie room. Did you ever go in the Bowie room? So it's all
I've never heard of a Bowie room.
Well,
I'm not sure they existed by the time I got to discos.
I think they did.
I did live in the depths of Suffolk, though. It's very sheltered.
Yeah, I was in sort of like Manchester, Stockport area.
Yeah, well, you see, there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
So there was in a disco, so like a big disco that had different rooms. There used to be a Bowie room, as they called it, and it was all the alternative music. So
okay.
I'm trying to think what was around at the time. So yeah, I used to, and I'm very happy to get on a dance floor and throw some.
I thought you were going to sound very
Throw a
happy
few
to give me a
shakes.
demonstration.
I know.
I'm really not.
Yeah.
No. However, I know if I went on Strictly, I would be the worst person in the world.
Why?
Because I just don't think I could do that, put in things where you're supposed to. I'm too much of a freestyler. So
Don't tell me where to put my foot.
Yeah, it kind of would be that.
Don't tell me to bounce on my heels.
I tell you what, girls, at some point we're going to have to get together, have a bit to drink and go for a dance, because I've got to see these freestyle moves now.
I know, it's intriguing, isn't it?
So Brian's sister used to own a hotel down in Bournemouth. Sorry, this isn't quick at all, is it? She used to own a hotel down in Bournemouth, and at New Year they used to do like a ceilidh and that sort of thing. I was shocking. I used to go in the wrong direction. That's why I just know I'd be rubbish at Strictly.
Oh, but that's the fun of a ceilidh. Absolutely,
Like,
everybody crashing into each other.
It's just the absolute idiot. Oh, dear.
Oh my goodness. Right, I've got another one for you. Where would you be if you could be anywhere right now?
Talking to us, obviously.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we're not available right now, so
Okay, all
where
right.
would you be?
Okay.
Gosh, that's a really difficult one, isn't it? I would definitely be somewhere abroad, purely because we've not been able to.
And it's flipping freezing here.
It's flipping freezing. Although I don't dislike January baby, so I feel quite protective of January, even though everybody hates it. Initial thought, I would say maybe Lanzarote, because I find it so inspiring with all the Cesar Manrique architecture. It's just the most beautiful place. And I went there in March last year, and I just felt so energised after going there. And then you come back and it's like straight into lockdown.
Okay.
But so inspirational and inspiring and just beautiful.
That's where we need to go then, Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
Lanzarote to see the freestyle dancing.
Exactly. Yeah.
After a bit of an inspiring.
I do want to go to Ibiza. I want to be one of those sad old women that goes to Ibiza dancing.
Do you?
Yeah. Love clubbing. Yeah.
You don't, do you?
I do. Yeah.
God,
Who knew?
I know. This is like a huge revelation.
Isn't it? And my last two questions are coming off the list, so they're really dull. In fact, I can't even remember where the list is. Oh my goodness, where's the list? I'm just going to have to try and remember.
Not the
Oh, well, I was going to go for that one.
Which one?
Get an answer. I don't think that we knew if she had to choose.
Go on then.
The dirty hands or dirty feet?
Definitely dirty hands. I haven't got quite as violent a reaction to dirty feet as Lucy does.
Yeah, she really does, doesn't
But
she?
I am really quite sensitive to things on my feet. And I mean, all these people who do all this wild swimming makes me feel almost physically sick.
Yeah, me too.
Thinking about like the mud squelching through your toes. Oh,
It's the things pulling you down
Yes,
to the
that's
depths.
the things. The
That's
things wrapping around your ankles.
But I told you,
and you
didn't I?
drown.
I stumbled across somebody who had just drowned when
no.
we went to Montenegro, as it was at the time. It was when it was Yugoslavia. We walked up, we found a lake, we went on a walking holiday, found a lake, and there was these people wailing and literally rending their clothes because somebody had just drowned in the lake.
Oh.
It was traumatic. So I do think that's probably why I'm quite so averse to worms.
Rich, I really think we need to take that question off the list.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be the last time I ask it. No, it won't. I can't resist it because I love seeing your face every single time.
No, but I can understand that.
All right, really boring one. What did you have for supper last night? It was memorable.
It was only last night.
Homemade chicken curry that
Nice.
Brian made, which was
Nice.
very nice. It was very nice, actually. We like our curries hot as well.
Do you?
So it's always hot.
He's good, that Brian. I've sampled a few of his wares.
Excuse me?
His food
Meals,
wares.
I think
Well, I think we should see if there's anything else you want to tell us before we...
I'm going to tell you something that is just, it's because it's so weird. I think you'll find it entertaining.
Okay. I'll be finishing on this.
If you want. There's nothing else I want to...
That's what I wanted to check. Is this our moment?
Ta-da!
I think we might be building it up a little bit too high.
Oh, okay.
I think the clubbing was a pretty big moment,
That was
to
a
be
big
totally
moment. That was
honest.
a big reveal.
Yeah.
So I have a phobia, and this is a recognised phobia, and it's a genuine phobia of big things.
Oh, yes.
Big things?
I remember now.
What do you mean, big things?
No, really,
So
really
it's
big
called
things.
megalophobia, and I have a physical reaction that sometimes can almost end in tears if I see a big thing, like a wind turbine or a bridge. You know, so if I see, like, what's the bridge that goes over to Wales? That coming upon me without me steeling myself to see it almost makes me hyperventilate. Really weird. Google it. Google megalophobia, and you'll see. I physically can't Google it because you see all the things you have a phobia about.
Have you always had this phobia?
Well, I didn't know it was a phobia. I've
Just
always
thought you were a bit weird.
So cooling towers. It was a bit like, I can't look at those cooling towers. They make me feel really uncomfortable.
Is it because they're so big and make you feel small?
I think it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what. I didn't know it was an actual thing until. What was I watching? We were watching something, and they were talking about phobias, and I was like, "That sounds like mine." So I googled it, and it was like, "That's my thing. That's what everything that was on the list." And things like a pier. You know how a pier goes into the sea. Things that go into the sea, or a wreck under the sea, just give me the heebie-jeebies. It's a physical. I mean, I have almost been brought to tears sometimes if I see something unexpectedly. We used to live near Jodrell Bank. If I saw that unexpectedly, honestly. So you know what Jodrell Bank is? The great big telescope. That's what we used to live near there. If I saw that out the corner of my eye or something, it's almost like a monster or something. I don't know what it is, but
and this is true. I've been with her in the van,
and I'm
when it's happened.
I can't look over that.
It's quite weird because you really, really, really are. And this is a mild word to describe it, but uncomfortable, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gosh.
So we live quite near. You won't know, but in Huddersfield there's a big Emily Tower. I think it's Emily Mast, and I caught sight of that unexpectedly, and I was really quite physically distressed. It was horrible, and yeah, it's weird. I don't know what. I don't know why. So I'm just weird.
We
And
embrace the weird. Yay, well done, Mrs. Pickles.
Can I? We finishing now?
Yeah.
I'm starving. I need this biscuit.
That's going in right at the end. You've been listening to the Restless Creatives podcast. To ensure you don't miss our next episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Restless Creatives podcast. If you would prefer to listen rather than watch us, you can catch us on your favoured podcast provider.